So I woke up to some very disconcerting news this morning. Our beloved game engine and company, Unity, has made some transgressions, to put it lightly. And the game dev community right now is furious. Now, before I explain to you exactly what has happened, let me first just say, for a long time, I've been an advocate of the Unity game engine and company. It's a tool I use daily, and I've always been quick to praise them, in spite of their shortcomings. But enough is enough. So what happened? In a nutshell, Unity decided that game developers who already struggle in a hyper-competitive market to stay afloat, getting profits cut by every platform and vendor, well, Unity decided they want their pound of flesh too. So now, game developers using Unity to build games, they will be charged 20 cents per install of your game. Now, there are some different tiers and thresholds, but fundamentally 20 cents as the base offering. And this is the tier that's going to affect indies the most. And in many ways, it gets much worse. But 20 cents per install. And I said install, not sale. Because if somebody buys your game, you get charged 20 cents. If they uninstall your game and reinstall it, you get charged another 20 cents. Absolute f***ing hubris. Now, some might say, well, what's the big deal? It's only 20 cents. And if you're meeting the 200,000 minimum cap, then it shouldn't be a big problem. But there's no reason to believe this price should stay fixed. Now you're in that system, it could very well increase, and probably will. Magic market forces, inflation, why not? Swing their stock price up. Once again, stepping all over developers. So here's some answers that Unity has to some of the community's questions regarding this update. How are you going to collect installs? And Unity responds, we leverage our own proprietary data model. We believe it gives an accurate determination of the number of times the runtime is distributed for a given project. So that's something I saw discussed by other developers, where they're making a point that you could theoretically game that system. And if you were, an insidious person, you could start charging a game developer by running a script or a hack that kind of flags an install or deinstall. I mean, on a basic level, you could just keep uninstalling and reinstalling a game of someone you hate or whatever. You get all your friends to do it. And every time you do that, the developer has to pay 20 cents. And if it's like a coordinated strike, that could be quite disastrous for a developer. I'm not saying that would happen, but theoretically, the door to that is open, right? So here's an interesting one. Is software made in Unity going to be calling home whenever it's run, even for enterprise licenses? So this is interesting because, if you're an enterprise organization with millions of users and massive amounts of turnover, it's a bit uncomfortable to know that your app is actually, sending data packets back and forth to Unity. It's very important to know what data is going in and out of your app and try to, avoid security breaches. So yeah, I can understand that. Normally that's kind of an opt-in situation. And Unity responds, we use a composite model for counting runtime installs that collects data from numerous sources. The Unity runtime fee will still use data in compliance with GDRP and CCPA. The data is being requested, is aggregated, and is being used for billing purposes. Now, that's what you call a politician's answer right there. Question number 3. If a user reinstalls or re-downloads a game or changes their hardware, will that count as multiple installs? Remember, you get charged for every one of these. Yes, the creator will need to pay for all future installs. The reason is that Unity doesn't receive end player information, just aggregate data. Well, that's not really the developer's problem, is it? That's Unity's problem. Unity can't get the data of how many times something was installed. So it's like, all right, we're just going to charge you every single time because we don't have that data. Fantastic. Question. If a game that's made enough money to be over the threshold has a demo of the same game, do installs of the demo also include a charge? Answer. If it's early access, beta, or a demo of the full game, then yes. So you get charged for people playing your demos as well as the main one. Question: what's going to stop us being charged for pirated copies of our games? Answer: we do already have fraud detection practices in our ad technology, which is solving a similar problem. So we will leverage that know-how as a starting point. We recognize that users will have concerns about this, and we will make available a process that for them to submit their concerns to our fraud. I mean, this is not going to work. This is not going to work. I'm not at all convinced by that response from Unity. When you upload a game to Steam, especially if it's popular, it gets ripped off straight away and uploaded to a number of these dark web pirated sites where people can download your game for free, and they usually get just like rack up massive amounts of downloads. You, as a developer, are probably going to get charged for all of those downloads that you're getting no sales for, because it's impossible for Unity to fight against this kind of level of piracy. They're always going to find new workarounds. It's just the nature of the hack space. You cannot win the piracy game. Don't even try. It has never been done successfully. How could you ever feel confident and convinced that the games you're getting charged for are not pirated copies? Even if you know Unity has measures in place, I'm not sure I would feel ever satisfied that there's nothing sliding through the cracks. And that's a problem. So this is a really important one here. Does this affect WebGL and streamed games? Answer: games on all platforms are eligible for the fee, but will only incur costs if both the install and revenue thresholds are crossed. Installs, which involves initialization of the runtime on a client device, are counted on all platforms the same way, WebGL and streaming included. So any game that you upload to itch that runs in a HTML5 web player, that is also susceptible to this fee. Now, how is Unity going to know what those games are making? Or any game for that matter. See, it's one thing if you're doing it on Steam, because the price of a game is clear. And even then, I'm not sure how they're going to determine that. Are they going to run some API in the game to know the price of your game? Because the sales, the prices of games will change over their lifetime. How are they determining the price? So I can only speculate that I have to have some integrated detection system that knows the price of your game. How then do you do that for web games? Some web games are surrounded by ads, and they make their money from the surrounding ads. There's so many different ways a game can make money. It's not always through direct sales. And finally, are these fees going to apply to games which have been out for years already? Answer: yes. Assuming the games are eligible and distributing the Unity runtime, then runtime fees will apply. Let's check some of the responses here. Someone's writing, I've been using Unity for about 12 years now. I love working with Unity, the engine, but ever since the IPO, every big announcement have made me lose a bit more faith in Unity. The fact that you're adding more fees charges onto already shipped games that aren't even being updated anymore makes me lose absolutely all remaining faith in Unity as a company. I don't know what's up with upper management there, but you guys clearly don't care about the goodwill or how the company is viewed by its customers. I've not considered making a serious project in anything other than Unity in the past 10 years. I'm almost stuck using Unity with a combination of 12 years of experience using Unity, memorized knowledge of all its Unity's APIs, intricate knowledge of the editor, the various packages, Unity services. I've got thousands of pounds of assets bought on the Unity store. But this move is genuinely enough to make me go learn everything again from scratch. How do you make a move so bad it makes a customer for over 10 years not want to touch your company again? That right there is pretty much the sentiment that a lot of developers are feeling right now, including myself. But let me defer to an excellent article written by developer Brandon Sheffield that emerged yesterday in response to Unity's reckless business decision. One of many articles emerging right now. So this article is rightly titled The Death of Unity, and you can read it on insertcredit.com. I'll read you the important bits and then follow up with some additional thoughts. Unity was once heralded as the savior of the game dev industry. My game company Necrosoft has used Unity for every commercial project, but now I can say unequivocally, if you are starting a new game project, do not use Unity. If you started a project 4 months ago, it's worth switching to something else. Unity is quite simply not a company to be trusted. What has happened? Across the last few years, John Riccitiello has taken over the company. The engine has made a steady decline into bizarre business models surrounding an engine with unmaintained features and erratic stability. The latest and final straw is this announcement. Unity Personal, which is free, now cannot be used offline. All tiers of Unity now require developers to pay a set fee for every game that's installed. They are already charging a subscription, and now a per install cost on top of that. Vampire Survivors Edge was the price. Now doing something like that is completely unfeasible. Imagine releasing a game for 99 cents under the personal plan, where Steam takes 30% off the top for their platform fee, and then Unity takes 20 cents per install. And now you're making a maximum of 46 cents on the dollar. Keep in mind if you're using a publisher or something, which will likely take another 30 to 40%. So you, as a developer, after all your years of hard work and everything, are probably left with 20%. Expect fewer games to be pitched with Unity going forward. On top of this, there is no minimum cooldown period after they charge their fee, so they can raise it as they like, whenever they like. Effectively, we're all locked into an upward-only per-install pricing model that can change whenever Unity decides. They need extra revenue to make their stock look healthy. No developer would have decided to use Unity if this was the business model from the start. It proves they're willing to completely change things up with no notice. There is one other critical element here. Developers are being offered a reduced price if they use Unity services. This is basically monopolistic and anti-competitive, and they will most likely get sued over it. Ultimately, it screws over indies and smaller devs the most. It'll squash innovation and art-oriented games that aren't designed around profit. It's a rotten deal that only makes sense if you're looking at numbers and assume everyone will keep using your product. Well, I don't think people will keep using their product unless they're stuck. Unity is desperately digging its own grave in search for gold. This is all incredibly short-sighted and adds to a string of rash decisions and poorly thought out schemes from Unity across the last few years. It's no wonder Riccitiello sold 2,000 of his shares last week. As was mentioned, ever since Unity had their IPO and turned into a public shareholder-backed company, things seem to have been degrading, at least optically, from a game developer's perspective. It has been one jab to the developer community after another. From the cancellation of Gigaia, their in-house game that was meant to finally explain to developers how to properly use their tooling in the correct Unity way. It was something that developers were so looking forward to. This was an important tool that we needed. Cancelled. And this all comes from a place of love, because I do love Unity as a platform and game engine, and I would like nothing more than to continue using it well into the future. I want it to succeed because its success is tied to my own success. But right now, like many of you, I'm concerned about where this is going. And no doubt you'll get a bunch of these so-called insiders defending Unity. But it's time that developers stood up to the boot. Because we are essentially what make these platforms popular and successful. If we move to something else, their stock prices will plummet. When was the developer community consulted on any of this? It's all closed door decisions. I've invested a lot of time into the Unity platform and I love it. And I would hate to have to learn a new one to the level and proficiency that I now know Unity, but I will do it if I have to. And I'm sure many other developers will do so as well. Unity, fix this. You can fix this, it's not too late. There are emerging competitors like Godot that while they're not up to your level right now, in the coming years they will hit a maturity and they will be viable. And I think you'll start seeing a lot of people moving to those platforms. So please, Unity, listen to the community, listen to the people that made your platform what it is now.